Oh, that clock is like slow. Yeah. Welcome everyone here this evening. Today is Monday, March 27th, 2023. This is just a meeting of the District Budget Committee. I want to welcome Scott for being here, and thank you for taking your time. Missing the other meeting tonight, so you're here with us. I appreciate it. So if we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. First item is the approval of the board agenda. Do I have a motion from one of the committee members for the approval of the board agenda?
I make a motion to approve the board agenda.
Now we have a motion from Ms. Dawkins. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Cash. All in favor, show of hand. That is unanimous. Okay. Thank you. Just for information, this is a committee meeting, so it is not a quorum, so it requires with our board 4 members or less of the board. The rules of engagement for the committee is that the only ones who can ask questions and discuss anything are the committee members. So with that going forward, I'll turn it over to Dr. Fall with regards to the recap of the 2022-2023 budget.
Since this is a committee meeting, it's a little bit less formal than the board meetings, but we're going to follow along that general agenda there as far as topics. I'm just going to go through. You have 2 different folders in front of you. The blue one is this current year, 22-23 information, and then the purple one is for the upcoming year. Let me preface by saying the purple one is nothing in stone. We don't know what it's going to be. That's our best guess right now. We have no idea. It is not in stone, so don't take any of it to heart. Don't go out and tell people that we're going to do X, Y, Z, because we don't have our numbers from the state. So it is not anything that you can write home to mama about, so to speak. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. If you open up your blue folder, your first page that you should have there looks like this, which is your general fund sheet, which should look familiar. You get one of those every month to keep you up to date where we're at. Right now, we got net change in the fund balance of about almost $15 million. To give you an update on that, that's basically on track, very similar to where we were last year. But we also still have a long way to go, and keep in mind most of the taxes have already been collected to this point. So just keep that in mind. But we're on track about the same as we were last year. So we'll see how we finish up. But we got a long way to go. Also, since this is if y'all have any questions throughout this, because I'm going to just go item by item.
Well, Dr. Fall, with regards to being on track, just for new board members and just for general public, with taxes pretty much being taken in, where will the majority of the income come from at this time?
Most of it, I mean, you still get some tax stuff that, you know, people pay a little bit later and things like that. So you still get some of that in. Some of it, we still have state funds coming in. It's a plethora of different places. But most, if you look to the right-hand side of that sheet, most of those revenues have already been collected and spent in some cases, depending on what the category is. But that gives you an idea where we're at percentage-wise as far as where everything's coming from. All right, moving along there, if you flip that sheet over, the next packet of information there is quite lengthy. It is all of the FTEs for the district for the most part. There are some FTEs that are not on here that if they're a vacancy, they won't be listed on there. If it's a supplemental positions paid by stipend or like a second job, like how some of our coaches drive buses and things like that, that wouldn't be listed on here neither. So that'll give you an idea of the number, but it's not, like I said, it's not exact. So right now on there, it shows $11.99. We know we have more than that, but like I said, it doesn't include some positions. And then if you just flip through that, it's a breakdown of each building, each school, to give you an idea, kind of number-wise.
Dr. Fall, I'm
Yes,
sorry,
ma'am.
can we go back 1 second to the first page? The total state sources, you said right now we're at 59.12%. What percentage are we normally at, you know, to know that everything is in from those state resources? Total state sources, 59.12%?
Oh, okay. Now, what's your question about that?
I mean, that's the complete percentage that we received, or will that go higher, or?
That's where we're at. What was budgeted was the 52 million. You can see we've only taken in 31 million at this point.
So we're anticipated to receive at least 20 million more, hopefully.
Roughly.
State from state funds.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And local resources, we're almost there for that because we're at 97.48%.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So we're just really kind of waiting on
And-
state funds to come in.
Right. And
Okay.
that local is primarily taxes.
Right.
And we know that tax season is happening and they've collected and we pretty much have all that in. Like I said, you'll have some late arrivals, but
Okay.
for the most part, that's pretty much
Now,
done.
other sources, what all is included under there? Because I see we're budgeted for 83 million, and we're at 60 million right now. So what's the other 23, roughly 23 million?
Sure, you want to touch on that?
The 20-something million is the state sources, because we're only at 59%. Okay, so you still got, March, April, May, and June state sources to come in for all the claims we filed. We get a report, we get a deposit every week from the state and a final report each month. So that's where the 20-something million will come from.
Well, now, the 20-something million I'm speaking of is under the, okay, so this is the total revenue and
Right.
transfers in. I understand now, gotcha.
You were looking
Okay.
under total.
Our other
Right.
sources is smaller items like building rentals and if we sold building or if we did something.
Right.
You know, if we sell assets on gun deals, it goes in that.
Okay, so we're waiting on really state funds.
State funding is primarily what you're gonna deal with the rest of the year. You've got most all your local,
Mm-hmm.
and then, of course, you got expenses throughout the rest of the year.
Okay,
And we'll pay out contracts by June 30th, so all that.
thank you, Ms. Morgan.
$3 million's gonna go down, in other words.
Thank you so very much.
So, Ms. Morgan, just clarify for everyone, up until when taxes are quote due, until you get fined for not paying your taxes, the majority of that income for the school district comes from taxes, still having the state each
Each month,
month,
actually
each week, putting money in, but the majority comes from the taxes, and then the remainder after taxes are due, and most people have paid their taxes, those funds come from the state.
And remember the state, I told you all this before, when you're talking about like the teacher pay raise stuff that is coming, they only fund 70%. They expect the other 30% to come from local sources, taxes. So, and we'll get to that a little bit later when we talk about mills and stuff.
Okay, I have one more question. I'm sorry, but I do. Okay, so your total revenue and transfer in is roughly 83.4 million. And you're telling us that your total expenditures and transfer out is the exact same thing?
We always have a balanced budget, but if you pull your budget files from last year, there was some of it, there's about
That's
379,000 slated to come from fund balance to make it balanced. Transfer from fund balance.
that's what y'all approved last year. If you look right here, under the other sources,
Gotcha.
see where it says there, transfer from fund balance.
Right, the 379,835.
Right.
Okay,
That's what y'all voted. Hopefully we will need.
By law, we have to present a balanced budget.
Okay.
And for at least 5 years or longer, the school district has, it's been a balanced budget by pulling from the fund balance. Now, we've been fortunate with COVID money and different things, we haven't had to pull from the fund balance to balance it out. We've been able to save money and do different things to balance it, but you have to, by law, have a zero.
okay, that I understand, okay. But we may not need that. We may not have to use that to balance it. Okay.
We hope not, but it's in there in case.
Just in case, gotcha, okay.
Any questions about the FTEs? That's pretty standard. Moving to the next sheet there you have, the athletic budgets for Gaffney and Blacksburg, and also respectively their middle schools that fall underneath them. And you can go through each one of those and look, but at the end of the day, if you look at the totals, on the far right-hand columns, we were budgeted and where we're at, both of them are under right now, so, and sports are almost finishing up, so we should be fine as far as athletics. We should come in either right at or slightly under, hopefully.
With regards to athletic budgets, that's what's budgeted. Anything that's not budgeted, is that under other? Is that listed under other on the expenses?
Like if we had a scoreboard go out or something.
Yeah, or something, I mean, what about?
It wouldn't be on that one. We would take it out of capital miscellaneous, and you'll see some things in there, which is the next sheet coming up, where we had to do some athletic things out of that miscellaneous. But as far as that goes, if it's something that pops up that they, football is a big example because jerseys get ripped all the time. They need new mouthpieces, chin straps, with those pop up occasionally, so that could fall under there. They have equipment for a lot of that, but others just something that pops up that they may not have control over or that wasn't a budget.
So you're saying $35,000 was budgeted for other, and we actually spent $44,000?
Yes.
So we were $9,800
Yes.
under budget for that?
Over.
I mean, over budget.
Over.
Over budget, okay. Over budget.
I'm assuming, and of course that's dangerous, with regards to uniforms and apparel, just the increase in cost this past year from, in general?
You'll see in our, for next year projections, a lot of that's why it's part of the reason why things have went up. Everything has went up cost-wise, whether it's athletics, whether it's academic programs. Companies that we've been in contracts with for a long time have sent emails and notices that, hey, we have to raise price. It's everything. When you go to the grocery store and every single item costs more, it's a challenge for sure.
Okay, so, but that's not, okay, so you're saying that could be uniforms and such, but under athlete apparels, you warm up, uniform, shoes, we budgeted for $45,000, yet we spent $75,000. So uniforms are falling in that category and such.
Right,
So-
I'm just saying when something other comes up that, like, let's say that football's on a uniform rotation and they need a uniform, you still gotta get it if it gets destroyed. They may not be on the rotation to buy one that year. Like basketball, they don't get a new uniform every year. Baseball doesn't get a new uniform every year. But sometimes you gotta replace things.
Right. I'm just saying that
And
other
it's not just
category,
you.
that other category is kind of mystifying to me because, you got a category for uniforms, you got a category for equipment and supplies, which all were over budget, but I don't understand what's all falling in that, what else is falling in that other.
It just could be anything. Miscellaneous is the way that I look at it.
I can go into detail general ledger if you want, by item.
Once again, like I said, we're actually looking to come a little bit under hopefully this year, or breaking even. Nothing else on that. If you look at the capital list, as you can see, most of the projects are close to finishing up for the 22-23 list. On the second, I think it's the second page. no, the third page, you can see a breakdown. I talked about the miscellaneous. There's all kinds of things on there, that we use the miscellaneous to be able to accomplish. And it's crucial, some of those, you know, there's two water heaters on there, there's access control, there's pressure washing, there's some athletic stuff, window tinting, I mean, you name it, the miscellaneous can pick up some of those things.
And these requests are made by the
By the school,
administrators?
by the schools, it could be administrator, it could be a teacher, like the window tinting at Blacksburg Middle was the gym, and it was mainly the teachers and coaches, because it would get hot.
And this is like this list could change as the year goes on, because if something breaks,
Yep.
it can be added to this list.
Yep.
Okay.
And then the last is the additional that you all approved from the additional capital that we did last year, the weapons detection system, softball, baseball projects, the 3 buses, I'm sorry, that we just did. And then we still have, which I sent you guys an email for a while back, we've had numerous professionals, from engineers to you name it, coming out to look at the stadium where we have the issues. We're still waiting to find out what that is gonna be. Any other questions from the 22-23? And then we'll move into the next year.
So all the items on the capital request for 22-23 was completed?
No, I said most of them.
Oh,
have
okay.
been. If you look, you can see exactly what was budgeted and where it went over, which,
Right. Which
that's
it
gonna be
didn't-
the
it
tough
didn't go
part,
over.
is a lot of it, you know, you get a budget number today, and it's not good, you know, a couple months down the road. So it is a challenge for us and other districts, and I'm sure businesses as well, to try to stay within those numbers.
So if it was not completed this year, does it roll over for next
Yeah,
year's
yeah, yeah,
request?
yeah,
Okay, and
yeah.
that becomes a priority on next year's, or?
Yeah, and most of the time, all those get completed. The only, like, vehicles are a big problem right now, trying to get those, so, which I've told you all before, which I think, Scott, you took the pictures, or maybe it was Brock, I don't remember, our new activity bus. We waited, what, two and a half years for that to come in.
Right.
So it stays until we get it completed.
Okay.
So that's how it works.
With regards to some items, do we look for grants? I'm looking there and seeing AEDs that were needed. And I know if we don't have them, we need them immediately, so you can't necessarily, but for some items that we might have a heads up on, do we look for grants to be able to purchase those items?
We try to look for every revenue source possible, because we don't have a lot of revenue, so we try to find grants for things. The AVID program started off as a grant. Everything that we do, we try to find additional resources, because we just don't have a lot of resources in this district. Moving on to the purple folder. I just want to make clear again, this is 1,000% a guess. The state has not given the numbers, has not finalized nothing, so I don't want no one to get too caught up on any of these numbers, because it is a guess. Now, having said that, I hope and pray that it stays very similar to this, because the numbers actually came in way better than we were hoping for at this point. But once again, we won't know until it's finalized. But that first sheet there, if you look, that gives you an idea of what a budget could look like for us moving into the next school year. It has went up significantly, and a big bulk of our budget is personnel. And they're looking at raising the teacher pay and bus drivers, so that's a big bulk of it. And then you throw in the fact that everything has gotten more expensive and all that. I mean, that's the contributing factors of why the budget is going up, and every year it goes up. Just like our homes, the price of a gallon of milk isn't the same as it was last year. Remember, I told you this earlier, the state only gives 70%, locals required to make up that 30% difference. The budget also includes the 2 budget recommendations on the next page. You'll see there, the next 2 pages actually. That budget includes the 2 budget recommendations from Mr. Long and Mr. Blanton for athletics. And also the increases to athletic supplements, which you'll see on the next group of pages there. And it also includes a supplement to pay the people for working the weapons system next year, because that has been a struggle, and the folks that work that deserve compensation, because that is truly above and beyond. They're doing a lot for that. So we've included a supplement for that, and I want to say it was it $500 a semester, I think?
$500 a semester, but it's only for middle and high.
Yeah, it's middle, well, they're the only ones that run the kids through, that's why it's middle and high school only right now. Because our staff members are running those, so that's a 5, and it could change semester, because if you got planning first block first semester, you might not have it second block, so
that's
that's why
typically the
it's.
same person that's doing this every morning, they don't rotate.
They do have, they have some, but I got the numbers from the principals of how many it would take for each school. And I want to say Gaffney High was 10 maybe? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, I don't have it in front of me, but each one of the school principals gave me the numbers of how many people it took. And then we talked about it, and we felt like 500 was a good
Will it be like
additional.
prorated, or I'm assuming the administrator will kind of assign those times to ensure that everyone kind of pulls their equal weight?
Yep.
Okay.
It was 12 at Gaffney High.
Was it 12?
6 at Blacksburg, 8 at Gaffney Middle, 4 at UN, and 4 at Blacksburg.
And those were based on the principal recommendations of what they need to man there, because every school, coming and going to the kids is different.
So for the athletic supplements, the ones that are highlighted in yellow are increases?
You're looking at this one?
This,
Second page.
One highlight in yellow, either the amount changed, or the number of people changed, or if it's all the way across, it's a new one.
okay.
There's a side-by-side comparison.
I see. So like field maintenance and golf assistant, those 2 are new.
Yes, as your request is new.
This budget, the purple folder, keep in mind, and we'll go over that. You have that in your packet as well for the it does not include this sheet here that is $3 million worth of FTE requests. It does not include that, and it does not include any kind of additional, if we wanted to do anything additional as far as pay groups or anything like that. So just keep that in mind as we're moving forward through this process. Having said that, though, I will be looking at the FTEs and the different pay scales and trying to prioritize if there are positions that are needed, or if there are some pay scales that just there's significant disparities between school pay and the world pay. We have, unfortunately, some adults that work for us right now that their kids are making more money than them handing a burger through a drive-through window. So those are the kind of areas that we'll be looking at and prioritizing. And as you can see where we're at with the budget right now, that's no mill increase or anything else. So I would recommend, and this isn't a vote or anything like that right now, I'm just telling you probably what's gonna happen. One of those two categories, whether it's an FTE, or it's correcting a pay issue, or a combination of both, will probably be a millage request to offset that, because otherwise it's just gonna put us further in the hole as you see where we're at with the budget. I mean, there's no way we can afford to do $3 million worth of requests. There's no way we can do that and fix other issues that we know we've been struggling to try and fix in the past years. Speaking of pay scales, after the 3 million of requested positions, you have this packet here is all the different pay scales. We want to try and narrow that down. Now, you won't see in there some of the, I always forget the index scales. You won't see that in there necessarily for some of those pros and administrators that are on that old index scale. That's not in there. But you can see, I mean, we got a whole bunch of scales.
Some of those you have multiple years so that you can trail changes that's increased each year. Like the bus drivers, teachers, I've given you multiple years, so you'll see that's increased and change. And then all of them I gave you last year before we changed it, and then after we changed the rest of them. If they got $1 an hour or 2%, so you have multiple years of each.
And I can only speak since I've been here. I do know since I've been here, the boards, the different boards, you know, this is our third one since I've been here, that it has always been my priority and the board's priority that if we do for one, we try to do for everyone. So we have tried every year to give something to everyone. And we're gonna continue that moving forward as we work more through this budget process. It's just, as you can see, the money it's difficult, very difficult. And part of that is, if you flip a little bit further through these sheets here, you'll see after the capital, you'll see the millage there. The very last page, you can see the years, those 10 years where we didn't have no millage increase. And that is what we're still paying the price for with our budget today. If those mills would have been done over the years, our budgets could look a little bit different, but they weren't, so we have to deal with that, and that's one of the struggles that we have. Also on the millage sheet, the second to last one, you'll see there we have 12 highlighted. That's a guesstimate. We won't know that for certain until probably around the end of April, maybe even beginning of May, until we get the letter from the state telling us exactly this is what you have. But we're guessing it's probably going to be around that 12 again, hopefully. So just, I want you to kind of have that knowledge when we go through and actually finish up the budget and do the first and second reading. That's going to be crucial to understand how we're going to be able to do the things that we need to do.
For the substitute pay, we're still looking at doing a $10 again next year. We're not looking at doing an increase for them?
That's, I haven't said anything about any increases for a reason.
I mean, it's in the purple folder, I'm just asking.
The reason that it's in there is because it's part of those scales, and it is one of the things that I said I'll be looking at as far as different pay groups.
Right.
So it could be one of the ones that they could get something. It just gonna depend once again, because we're in the hole, so you're gonna either dig deeper, or we're gonna have to raise millage to either FTEs or pay fixes.
Okay.
So
And what about the food service workers? Are they
they're in this list. That's why I said
to get an increase again this year.
All pay scales, FTEs, everybody will get something.
Okay.
That we're gonna make that effort regardless. It could be a step increase, it could be a percentage increase, it could be, every group will get something. What we wanna look more closely at is the groups that are way behind other jobs outside of our world. Like I said a minute ago, we have adults that are making less than their children
Correct.
at fast food places. So we wanna look at those are the priority in my opinion, because sooner or later, you're gonna lose those people and you're not gonna be able to replace them. No one's gonna come for less when their kids are making more. So those are the big priorities that we really wanna look at, first and foremost.
Now, can you derive of a list of priorities so that we will know exactly what we're looking at and in what order?
I'll get to that in a minute, but,
Okay.
there is a specific, if you read the policy on budget, it is my job to create the budget, it is my job to prioritize, and it is my job to present that to you all. And this information, is strictly information. I have to prioritize what is needed to work within the goals and the strategic plan and all the things that we have to accomplish. And that's why I said, it could be a combination of FTEs, it could be a paid. We got a lot of areas that we need help financially. We've known this for years, well before I got here. Every year around budget season, it's the same conversations. We need to raise pay, we need to do X, Y, Z. Every year I've been here, I asked for the max millage and have not gotten it, so the money isn't there. We gotta prioritize and do what we can, and we're gonna do that again this year. We're gonna try to make sure everybody gets something, and we're gonna try and target the areas that have a big need, especially, like I said, those employees that are way behind the rest of the world. That's a big priority to me right now.
But and I'm not talking about teachers and bus drivers, because we know that's mandated by the state. I
Right.
would just like to kind of see your set of thinking on how things should be prioritized. And I understand that is your position to do so, but just want to, try to see what you're thinking.
I will share that when we get to that part. I'm not even there yet because, once again, we don't have state numbers yet.
Right.
All this is just hypotheticals. We really have no clue at this point. We think it's probably going to be close to this, but until we get that final, we don't know. So I hope that it is close to this, because like I said, the budget was actually a lot better than what I thought it would be. Having been here for 4 years now, this one is, I think it shocked me and Sherry both when we ran it. So we hope that it stays as close to this as possible, because if it gets worse, that's just deeper hole that we go into. So
Is it fair to say you'll probably look at some of these neighboring counties that we're competing against for recruitment to help determine some of these scales?
we do. That's one of the ways that we help prioritize on that. I've said this in the past. We've done a payroll study every year that I've been here. I know that they've been run before that as well. But at the end of the day, it comes down to either you have the resources or you don't. I think that everybody on this board, myself included, and I don't want to speak for no one, knows that we need to increase pay. I mean, that's been a discussion every year. We know, based on all the payroll studies, that every one of our positions are behind. We know that. But what has really gotten bad is, like I said, because of the pandemic, a lot of these businesses that normally would have been at that minimum wage range hiked it up tremendously, which has hurt us tremendously, because now we have, like I said, adults that are making less than their kids at fast food places and stuff, and that's not good.
Well, Dr. Fall, I'll just tell you, I've said for, been on here 20 years now. I don't understand why the school districts think a cafeteria operator or a custodian, any of them, should be on a 23-year scale to get the top pay. I mean, they're getting 10, 15 cents a year per step. I mean, to me, that's a slap in the face. I'm just gonna be honest with you.
I agree with that.
Why do they have to be on a 23-year increment like that? I mean, good gracious, you go to McDonald's, you're on top pay in 2 or 3 years. And that's why their top pay is back in our top pay scale, but they gotta be here 20 years, 23 years.
One of the school board's functions is to determine payroll scales.
Well, I think we need to be looking at it.
And that,
I may have said it time and time again, but
well,
it's getting, I mean, that's why, I mean, most people, I'm gonna say most people in those jobs, probably, I mean, starting off, things like that, what is it, $11.61 an hour starting off, okay. Next year, you gonna give me, what, 17 cents? I mean, gee,
not me, I have to follow those scales that were board approved. We can change them, but you all have to do it, but in order to do it, we gotta have funds. And that's what we've been stuck with for a long time, is the funds to be able to do it.
there again, guys, that's what we need to be working on. I mean, we can come back and say all this, raising these, raising our millage and all that stuff, but if we ain't giving no more of a raise than that, it's still a slap in the face, in my opinion. That's all I'm saying. I mean, it's crazy. Classified person, yeah, a classified person on these kind of scales. Like I said before, they walk in that store and get a gallon of milk, it costs them the same thing it does you. I mean, you're not giving them enough in a raise right there to buy a gallon of milk a week.
I agree with Mr. Blackwell. I think we need to take another look at that. We can see what we can do.
Those scales are clearly defined as you guys dictate those.
Those scales were here, like I said, they was here before anybody here. They were here before I was here. I've been here, I think, about the longest now. And you know, we've said it and said it and said it, but like I say, it's time something's to be done.
Well, that's why I said when I look at the budget and I look at, you know, we got $3 million of FTE requests. We have all these scales that we know, there's several of them, like you just talked about, and worse, that we've talked about since I've been here, and I know, like you said, well before that as well. It's gonna, I think that for this budget year, we're gonna try to have it as balanced as possible, doing everything we can to make sure everybody gets something. After that, it's gonna be, in my opinion, X number of mills goes towards this. And whether it's fixing that scale, or whether it's fixing substitute pay, or whatever it may be, I think that's what we're gonna have to
How many
do.
cafeteria operators we have?
72 or something,
72.
I believe so.
At 10 cents, that's a drop in the bucket. I mean, some of these points are more than 10 cents a raise. And you're talking about we're gonna give them a raise. Some of them gonna get a raise, some of them gonna get a step increase. Like I said, that's the raise, the step increase, 17 cents right there. You know, that's nothing, guys.
I don't disagree with you, Mr. Blackwell. Once again, though, that's your guys', you know, the scales are
That's why we're
yours.
here. That's why we're here.
As I'm trying to learn and be sure I'm staying in the right lane, is that something that we ask you to recommend to adjust these, or is that something that we say recommend to you as far as this specific salary scale that he's referring to? Is that something that we would ask you and you would bring it back to
Well,
us?
a lot of times, you know, like I said, we've done several payroll studies, and I think that was the point of them, was to show the disparities in the different groups. And then, you know, you guys take that information and what you do with it is up to you. I can put together some recommendations for each scale and go from there, but once again, ultimately, it's up to you guys what you do
It's
as
already
far as
out
the
there
scale.
though, as far as those studies? So
Oh, yeah.
So you wouldn't really need to make those recommendations if the study says it, right?
I mean, we've done it every year I've been here, and from what I gather, And Mr. Blackwell, you've been on here the longest, you can correct me, but I think it's been done numerous times, correct? Payroll studies.
Oh, yeah, there've been some payroll studies coming in to us many times. We've had it done many times, but I'll just be honest with you. The payroll studies, we haven't been able to put a lot of faith in what's come to us, I'll just say it that way. That's what's came to us. When we discussed it and all that, we picked apart from them, we wasn't able to put a lot of faith in what came to it, because some of the areas and all that it was compared with, you know, like you said, it was kind of, we felt like there was areas of less that wasn't compared. You see what I'm saying? It was only compared with certain things. And that's what we had on. I can't see it happen every time like that,
So
but
that's why.
many
that's why
times
it's-
in there, we just didn't feel.
That's why it's never been approved,
What's that?
that's why it's never been approved to increase, to maybe do some of these millage increases? Is that what we're saying?
No, sir, no, sir, no, sir. The millage increases, most times is just because didn't have the funding to cover what they would say, as far as the increase goes. We did not have enough funding to cover it. But I said, we couldn't, we tried to get started. We started, like he's saying there, picking a category. We started picking a category. We actually worked on the clerks, and we worked on, you know, just a few of the categories like that to actually try to get them increased a little bit, each one, as we could do one. Is what we done each year. We picked a different one, but like it never got through it all.
That's why those scales Ms. Morgan printed off multiple years, so that you can see we have increased, we have tried to increase, but the problem is the pandemic put a lot of it on its head when they, you know, like I said, fast food, they're making $15 an hour. That was always a minimum wage, or you know, now it's up there where our positions have not and cannot keep up that quick.
So if we wanted to change the salary schedule, we wanted to change this, I'm thinking, Mr. Cass has asked you, what is the process? What's the first, second, third thing we need to do?
Well, the first thing is we need to know what you guys are wanting to do number-wise,
As a
so
board.
that we can look
Okay.
and see what it's gonna cost us. So
Okay.
that way, then you have that information so that you know, let's say, I'll use Mr. Blackwell's example of the cafeteria operators. Let's say you wanna change that scale from across the board, kinda like what they're doing with teachers, 2,500, let's say that you, cause they're hourly, not salary. So let's say you wanna say $2.50 every sale. Well, we'd have to run that payroll and run that to see what it would cost us. And then that's where you all would have to make a determination on millage, or we go in the whole more. Because we see where we're at with, if, and once again, this is all hypothetical, but where we're at right now, number-wise, we're already a little bit negative.
Right.
Anything we do is either gonna have to be covered by millage, or you go deeper in the hole. One of the two.
So you're saying the first thing that as a board, we need to try to set a new schedule, then we'll present that to you. You will run the numbers, you and Ms. Morgan will run the numbers and see if there's something that's feasible for the district to do and how we could get it done. And either we can get it done or we can't get it done, and so we start over again.
The first thing as a board, you guys have to determine, one, do you have board majority?
Okay,
Does the majority want to change any of the scales? If so, what scales? So that's the first thing you gotta determine.
okay,
And you all would have to vote on that.
gotcha,
Then you would have to make a vote and determination what that amount's gonna be.
okay,
And then once you do that, then we can run numbers and we can look and say, look, it's gonna be this amount. And then when we do the budget stuff, we can put that in as either a negative on the budget or a millage increase.
okay, gotcha.
So this is an instance where, as a board, we're, instead of, you know, staying in our lane and letting you do this and that, this is something that we could present to you, essentially.
Yes, when it comes to the pay scales, it clearly says the board is, you have the authority to change those.
Here
I
tonight,
can give you whatever information you want, but you guys have the authority to change those, not me.
but here tonight, all we can do tonight, guys, is we can make a recommendation to the full board.
To the full.
But our recommendation could fall in two ways. We could recommend something here to the board that we saying, let's change it to this. But we haven't, I personally don't feel good about that because we haven't done enough study.
Right.
I think we'd be better off to say, we recommend to the board that we do a workshop. Now, the whole board gets involved with that workshop. They can all be in that. Rather than it just be the committee, but at least we go to the workshop with an agenda. Instead of being so broad about so many,
Right.
it's narrowed down. We're working on just a couple, 2 or 3 cases each time.
And one thing that a committee can do is that they can, as a committee, can bring a recommendation for, or a motion to the full board. Now, we can't bring for a vote in here.
Right.
We can bring it as a committee. Thing about that, you really don't need a second because you got the first and the second within the committee. Then it's opened up for discussion with the full board. That's if you bring a motion, but we can make the recommendation, as Billy was saying. I mean, Billy, you're talking about pay scales. Do we want to look at what would it look like if we, instead of over 23 years, for certain positions, and if you did, I'm just going to generalize. We did certified positions. The pathway to top pay is not 23 years. It's shortened down,
Right.
and they can get top pay sooner. Now, there's a lot of other issues with that, but I'm just saying that's something that, you know, you've mentioned that about that. It takes 23 years to get the top pay.
Yeah.
But we'd have to bring that recommendation.
$4.50 in 23 years max salary raise. I'm just saying that right there, that's your cafeteria worker. Starting pay to max salary 23 years later is $4.50. I mean, I'm sorry.
It sounds like the ball's in our court, though. We
Right.
can-
As a committee, that's, yes, like I said, we hearing this, we're able to take, as a committee, listen, and then bring the recommendation to the whole board.
I mean, we need teachers. I'm not saying we don't, but we gotta have these other folks as well.
We gotta have
I mean,
support
we
staff.
can't- We can't send the kids to school and not feed them. I mean, we've got to do something. That's the same as using the analogy with the bus drivers. We got to get the kids to school.
Just keep in mind, anything that you do outside of teachers and bus drivers is all local funding.
That's right.
So keep that in mind, any kind of changes, and that's been the difficult part. I can only speak since I've been here, I'm assuming forever. That's been the difficult part because that local source hasn't been enough to make those significant changes that, like he's talked about for years and years and years. It's been, and once, I only speak for my time here, it's been talked about every year. But at the end of the day, when we say, you know, we need this, need that, it goes to, because everything else gets bumped ahead of it, I guess. I don't know, you know. But that's why I said, I think if theoretically, if everything was to stay as close as possible to this budget, I think this is a good year where you could say, we're gonna raise 6 mills, 8 mills, 12 mills, whatever, and every penny's going towards fixing this scale, or doing a raise for this group, or whatever, you know. But that's why I said, you know, my own priorities, that's how I'll be looking at those groups that are struggling to make ends meet. Like I said, we got adults that their kids are making more money. That's not right. And I get what he's saying as far as the progression of the money, that's one issue. But the real issue is it starts very low too. I mean, you're talking most all of our hourly scales are starting less than fast food. Considerably less.
Right.
I mean, that's,
Oh, yeah.
and that's the real problem. So trying to, that's, you're talking all the scales are need adjustment. And I think that's been an issue for years and years and years that has been a struggle to bite off.
Anything else on that, on the budget, is that?
No, I just, you know, if you look through the budget, and it is a challenge to, when we went 10 years with no millage increase, that has dug a hole for this district that has had lasting impacts for quite some time. And I get it. Trust me. No one likes to hear the dirty word taxes. No one wants to hear that. But at the end of the day, you know, our priorities should be about the kids and about education and doing what's right by them. And that's why I said I think if everything stays, I think this is a good opportunity to fix some of those woes. But it's going to take millage, or it's going to take going deeper in the hole.
I have one more question. I know a lot of times we do the salary comparisons to surrounding what we call competitive counties. But have we ever did a study to a county that is set up exactly like ours, same socioeconomic group as ours? Because, I mean, we can't compare to Spartanburg, we can't compare to York, really. But just no matter where they are in the state, someone with the same background and socioeconomic makeup as
We've
Cherokee County.
included some of those that are similar. Like Union, for instance, was in that group. They're actually paying more now. We have included some other districts, not just Spartanburg. We've tried to include ones similar to ours. Spartanburg always gets included because that's our immediate
Right.
competition
That's your competitor,
that's right there that steals a lot of our folks.
Right. But I was just wanting to know exactly how far are we behind with people that can afford or can't afford, you know, things that we can or cannot.
I think that the hourly folks are a struggle for every district right now because of the way that the pandemic changed a lot of those what used to be minimum wage type jobs have really changed. And I think it's a struggle for a lot of districts right now trying to balance that. I just read where Greenville, they're paying their bus drivers starting at 19 to I think 21. We can't get there. I mean, that's not a reality for us. But once again, we have every year tried to increase as much as we could, you know, on our end, the local side. We're just limited on the local side of what we can do. And then on top of it, what would help us is if the state fully funded the things that they mandate. Like, for instance, the teacher pay raise, which everybody knows teachers need it. I'm not questioning whether or not they need the raise, but if the state fully funded that 100%,
We could use that 30 somewhere else.
right? But you know, because they fully fund charter schools, but they don't fully fund us. So if that was different, that would change dramatically. You know, as far as what we could and couldn't do. But it's a struggle, and a lot of districts are facing that right now because of that new dynamic that we see that was a result of the pandemic.
Just a question overall, just going back to this current year and in previous years, how do we manage things that just come up? I mean, P cards and stuff like that. How do we manage that? Used to at one point, we could look and see online, the general public could, what was being spent, where it was being spent. I know you can't do that now. You can't see it online anymore. Is it where it?
Tax reports posted every week.
Okay.
All of the AP checks and also the card transactions.
Okay.
Two different-
All right.
It's on our website.
It's on our website, yes. Financial reporting required, post-tax.
I know I tried to look at it and I had a hard
I
time.
haven't tried to look lately, but I know I used to look at it.
They're
I
out.
know, by right, it's law, they have to post it.
Yeah.
They're out there. Much like that, we have a lot of laws and regulations we have to follow that, and we've had successful audits, and once again, I'll just speak during my time. I think in the past as well, but I know during my time for sure, we have had successful audits year after year after year for our finance, for our special education, for all of our departments. We have a lot of laws, regulations, and different things that we have to follow. And a lot of what we have to do, and especially in my world, a lot of it is written out by the policies that you all work on and approve and stuff. So it is very much scripted. As a matter of fact, the budget process is very scripted in policy, and it says exactly what we're supposed to do, and we do that. It talks about meeting with the principals and getting theirs, and that's where we got this list of 3 million FTE, you know, all that. It says specifically what's supposed to happen in there. And it says specifically that, you know, I am to report or present a budget to you all to approve. Matter of fact, it's in policy DB annual budget. Clearly says the superintendent has overall responsibility for budget preparation and will submit an annual budget to the board. Based on the superintendent's recommendation, the board will approve an annual budget. It is also my responsibility, according to policy DBD, determination of budget priorities states the superintendent is responsible for ensuring that budgets are prepared and adopted in accordance with board policies, federal and state laws. The superintendent has the authority to designate a chief budget officer and assign administrative responsibilities to achieve the purpose of this policy, i.e. Sherry. So we follow the policies. We do exactly what they say, and that's why we submitted, when did we do the budget calendar? Was that back in January we gave to the board?
January.
That's why we did that calendar, because it goes with policy, and it's clearly says in there. Now, the one thing that we do that policy doesn't talk about is we did include a workshop in there so that we could talk about some things once we have a better idea of what the state numbers are and are not. That's the whole point of that workshop, is so that we can hear some discussions and stuff. But at the end of the day, that is Sherry and my responsibility to present that to you all. And next year, I don't know how much you all have looked at policy or not, but next year, every 5 years, we have to do a zero-based, and it's got a few different things that we'll do a little bit differently next year, but every 5 years, you're supposed to do a zero-based budget process. So it will look a little bit different, but not much next year. And that I mean, it's everything that the because your seats change. Mr. Blackwell has been fortunate, and Dr. Nix, they've been on the board for quite a long time, but those seats change. And the policy stays so that it protects districts from doing things. And that's why everything is in there spelled out.
From the
Bless you.
committee, is there anything that we as a committee want to bring back to the full board at our next meeting? We will set a,
Well, I was waiting on to finish. I'm not done. I got a couple more things here tonight.
okay, well,
So,
okay. Go ahead, Mr. Black, what you got?
I
Some?
was still just looking over some of this. Miss Morgan, the frozen salaries, how many we got still left on that?
We probably have less than half a dozen. I can think of 4 administrative people and about 2 coordinators.
Well, our purpose when we froze that salary was probably, what, 10, 12 years ago, maybe, at least, maybe a little longer. I can't remember what year it was. But our purpose for freezing that salary then was because salary scales were changed, and it was going to cause some associates to have to take a pay cut. We froze it to prevent from giving pay cuts. We wasn't trying to cut pay. All right, that's when we froze it. But what I'm looking at now, I'll just look through some of my old stuff and all, but what I'm looking at now is one of them. I'm not going to use a name or anything, but one of them, basically right now, it's time to look at this and do away with these frozen salaries, because at this point, this person here is below the salary scale now, if you know what I'm saying. We've done it to prevent it, because when the time was and the salaries was changed, a new scale was put in place, they were paid above the scale. And we weren't trying to cut people's salary at that time, so we left them where they were and we froze. Now it's caught it and surpassed it. I don't know if they're all that way yet or not, but I know one I'm looking at is.
I would do
You
it in
saying
a
two of them
heartbeat.
are?
No, two of the ones literally just maxed out this year as far as being frozen, that they're on that overly big scale because they didn't want to come off.
I haven't looked at them, I don't know.
If the
That
board
might be
approved
something.
it, I would change it in a heartbeat, because what it would do for us is eliminate some of these extra scales that we
That's what I'm
have.
saying. I think we need to look at that one too. I'm not making a recommendation that we cancel it or leave it right now. I think we definitely need to take a closer look at it. I would say we ought to do a board workshop on the salary scales, all these salary scales, just put them all in it and we pick us out 2 or 3 if it takes a couple of workshops, whatever it takes. But that's my suggestion. We can take that one up in it. I mean, because I think that's gonna be pretty quick and easy on it. Once we look at what they're paying versus what the scales are for what their job is. Now, our thoughts when we done it is we weren't cutting salaries. We left them and we figured through attrition, them retiring, things of this nature, job change and all this. When they made those job change, they went to whatever the scale was then. So if it was a pay cut, it was a pay cut. If it was more, it was more. And that was gonna take care of it. You said we're down to, what did you say?
We're down to less than half a dozen.
Half a dozen people. Half a dozen people is another whole category they have to keep up with. I think we need to get rid of personally.
I would do it tomorrow if I had the board's authority to do it.
Well,
Just because it's
by
minimal
fall,
numbers
if I
and
had,
minimal
if I had all
expense.
that information for me now, I'd make my recommendation.
Well, we can't tonight.
I don't know, but I would make, as a committee, recommendation. But I'm not wanting to make it without seeing it. I think it's one that we need to look at, definitely. That's just one in the past, and I think, like I say, we need to look definitely at these, teachers, bus drivers have been getting taken care of by the state pretty good lately. And we've neglected some others. I think we need to look at them. And that's why I say, I think it'd be better off with a workshop where the whole board can have word in it. Instead of, if not, we can beat it dead, send it to them, they send it back and forth like they I've seen it happen. We can make a recommendation and it go before our next Monday meeting or whatnot, and the board doesn't agree and send it back. But I think we would just plan a little workshop or something like that.
You have a workshop scheduled for April already, so it'd have to be after that.
April 24th is the,
Listen, it don't have to be, our policy is, it doesn't have to be on the 2nd or 4th Monday. We can have it anytime we want it. All we gotta do is just make sure everybody's available.
So if we don't have a budget in place with 2 readings by July 1st, you'll have to do a resolution.
That's why I'm saying, we can call a meeting, a workshop meeting, anytime we want. We don't have to be just on that Mondays. Those Mondays are just days we've asked everybody to reserve as possible days to use.
yeah, that'd be a special called meeting.
It'd be a special
So-
call, workshop meeting, like I said, it's, even at that, at a workshop, it's not being approved then, but it's giving a direction for Dr. Fall, which way it goes, when it comes to us as a board for approval. In a workshop, we cannot pass it as being approved. So, but at some point, we've got to get everyone together and discuss it.
Anything else, Mr. Blackwell?
I think I probably ruined my mouth too much.
No, so what you're saying is that we'll look at a special called meeting with regards to salary scales.
Working on salary scale, and that's the only thing on the agenda then, is salaries.
And the frozen
And
salaries.
I'd like to have this in time to say we had to have everything right here, but Sherry, I'm just saying, we don't have everything.
You don't have
That's what I'm saying.
index administrative frozen.
Well, I mean,
This is what was asked of us. This was the agenda item.
Yeah.
I understand, but I just said, we didn't get it till tonight
Well,
to be able to study it or anything. That's what I'm saying. I would like, whenever we call it, try to get it all together. If we have to mail it.
we didn't have the agenda items till Wednesday.
Huh?
We didn't have the agenda items till Wednesday. We had to pull from Department of Revenue audit to
Understand.
get this run,
I'm just
so
asking her to try to get it where we can get everybody to get this and study it before they come.
we will, like normal, we'll get it to you.
Yeah. All right.
I'd like to see also a list of all the stipends. Yeah, all our stipends. I don't know, it may be in there, but
No, there's not a consistent list of those.
what we're paying stipends,
There's not a consistent list for stipends.
well, we used to get them, but where we
Are
at.
you talking supplements like I gave you for athletics, or are you talking stipends that?
Stipends, and we used to get it, and we used to have the teachers and everything, where you had lead teachers and all, everything.
The lead teachers and everything's built into their payroll as far as,
But it was a stipend paid to that lead teacher.
yeah, I can give you those that are standard, that go in every payroll that's divided, but as far as those that come in periodically, or somebody doing something extra, there's no set list of that.
I'm saying,
You're
what we
talking about
paid,
department leaders.
what we pay on a regular schedule, what we all regularly pay, we used to get them. I don't know where they got it from.
They go in like a
I'd
supplement.
pull back some of the old ones probably to see, but I don't know if I'll tell you.
The list of names every year off from high school of their director, department directors, and it's divided over their 24 checks, so they go in as a supplement.
Yeah. As I said, I'd like to see that one too, because I had some questions about, some stipends and all that's been out. So, and with the request here that they're making requests for changes here, I'd like to see it all.
Mr. Cash, anything, any thoughts, any comments?
No, nothing else.
So,
Nobody always ask all my questions.
do want to say thank you to Ms. Morgan and to the whole team for putting stuff together on such a quick notice. I do appreciate that, as you stepped away from other responsibilities to get this information. Anything, Dr. Paul, anything?
No, I would just, once you make those meetings, just, I would try and hold until you have better idea of what the state numbers are. Because you start talking about changing all the scales, the people only hear I'm getting a raise. And then when we say we don't have the money and they don't get a raise, then that always comes back to bite us.
Keep in mind, they're not all funded from the general fund, like food service is a separate fund, but if it's in the negative, it's offset by the general fund. Subsidized.
Budget is always a challenge.
Yeah. All right, if there are no further comments, any questions, next item will be a motion for adjournment. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Mr. Blackwell, second.
Second.
Mr. Cash, all in favor, show of hands. Thank you.
Thank you, gents, very much. Right, it's always sad anyway.
But it's never good. The
you have a lady that used to work for CMC? Well, when we were way back in the day. Is it Becky?
Oh, baby.
Yeah.
She worked there
Oh,
back when I was
goodness.
there in 91.
Because one of my ladies in my office in Dallas saw her in the cafeteria. She came to me and asked me did I remember her, and I just could not remember Becky Allison. And she said, well, she doesn't look like she did back in the day, but her voice is the same. So I've not ran into her yet. But now, what will she do there?
She is a social worker.
Oh, okay. Okay.
She's there with any of our patients. CCSD, just to, it's our social workers and checks.